Okay, so good evening to everybody out there, and thank you for joining us tonight for a very special Face It Live show presented by Fayette County Public Schools in the 16th District PTA. Of course, during this time, it is most important that our families and our communities stay engaged together and support each other. The Face It Live platforms allows for us to virtually have real talk, build real relationships, and allow a real ways for us to express ourselves and exert our energy positively and be solution driven in our approach to whatever we are facing in our communities, right? And so my name is Melody Westerfield. I'm the Family and Community Engagement Liaison at the Promise Academy of William Wells Brown Elementary School.
And I am Vita Stewart. Good evening. And I am the District Face Liaison. We are excited tonight. We have a special show. As we celebrate Black History Month, we want to introduce a very special initiative that was birthed out of our Lexington leadership journey. Melody and I are part of Lexington Leadership Class of 2021, best class ever. And we are members of the Black Empowerment Family University for Leading and Learning, Be Full. With our 8 other illustrious members, we are excited to launch Be Full. It will launch in April, our inaugural year of our Be Full project with our participating families. Our mission is at Be Full to empower and strengthen the health and wealth of Black families by elevating their funds of knowledge and intentionally creating opportunities to lead and learn in a collaborative environment. Tonight, in partnership with PTA and FCPS, we as Be Full are addressing the state of Black families with our distinguished panel tonight. And I'm going to let our panel introduce themselves, beginning with Miss Berry.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm Jessica Berry. I'm the Vice President of Mission Advancement for the YMCA of Central Kentucky. I am so glad to be here, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
All right. We also have Dr. Roger Cleveland.
Good evening. My name is Roger Cleveland. I'm a professor in the College of Education at Eastern Kentucky University, and I appreciate you all inviting me.
We have Judge Melissa Murphy.
Good evening, everyone. They've just introduced me. I'm Judge Melissa Moore Murphy for the 4th Division here in Lexington and Fayette District Court. I am excited to be here, and I'm so grateful for the invitation. Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, Mr. David Cozart.
Good evening, David Cozart, Lexington Leadership Foundation Fatherhood Initiative Director and Minister and Community Organizer, and push back a little bit that you might have the best Leadership Lexington class. Glad to be here.
All right, we'll let that ride. But we want to get right to it tonight. And so we have some questions for our illustrious panel. So the first question, and I'm going to direct it at you, Judge Murphy. And then if the panel wants to jump in, they can. You are here tonight because you are definitely considered a leader in the Black community. Tell us how your family shaped who you are, and just give us a brief, history of your family. It's important we have some background.
Well, thank you for that question. I will say, as I was focusing on that, thinking about my family, I am the knee baby, as my mom likes to call it. I am the second to the youngest, so I have 3 sisters and raised in a home with my mom. And so, as we always like to say, a single mom household. Yes, I have a wonderful relationship with my dad, but in the household, it was my mom and 4 girls. And so when I think about how they've shaped me, I think I had probably maybe an ill-guided thought of what the world would do as it relates to women, because I figured we could do anything we wanted to do. We had to move all the furniture in the house. We had to, we took out, there was nothing that we went back, me and my sisters were thinking about it. We had to move refrigerators. We had to move pianos because it was just us. Also, my mother is a former pastor and an ordained minister. I also am an ordained minister. So it's always that thing of whether women should be licensed to preach and so it never mind, and I practice in a legal field where people were all like, well, women are not accepted in certain areas. And I'm like, tell my mama that, because that's not the environment that I grew up in. So I always say it was kind of a little different in how I grew up and what I believed I could do. And we are a very strong family of faith. So I also had the belief that, you know, that through Christ I could do all things. So there's nothing that I've been able to accomplish in my life without my mom and my sisters being by my side. And you know, you also have that married family. So I have to give a shout out to the Murphys that they also have helped me get to the place that I am. So.
Anybody else want to share just a little brief family history? All right, we'll move on.
Okay, so I'm gonna go right to David with this one. And so, David, historically, Black families have been facing being separated and being torn from their families. How do we heal from the trauma of our families being broken apart?
Yeah, thank you for that question. There has been a issue of separation, and we know those were some intentional techniques that were used. Whether you believe in the Willie Lynch doctrine as something that is true or a myth, we do know those practices were there of separation of families. So I think that we have to realize that that tactic or that practice is still in play. It's just not done through slavery. We identify that there are separations of families through incarceration, there are separations of families through community gentrification. So families are still being separated. So acknowledgement that those techniques are still going on, and understanding that families have evolved into constellations, that families, the compositions of our families culturally have always been expansive, right? And so we use those family constellations and that battery of family support that we can have.
Thank you. Cleveland, you have anything to add to that, or am I just throwing you out there under the bus for no reason right now?
Well, you know, anytime, you know, Brother Kozart speaks, you know, you just want to listen, but I agree with him. But something else to think about is, even though with the separation historically, we have not always relied on nuclear family, right? We always relied on the extended family, and our extended family is not only aunts, uncles, and big mama and things like that, but the broader Black community is part of our extended family. So, and we had to rely on that because of separation.
Thank you. I don't know if anybody else wants anything to add, but I'll throw you under there if you want me to.
I think I like the word. I've not heard constellation, and like Dr. Clean said, moving beyond the nuclear family. So those were some insightful points. So next question, and I'm going to come back and going to start with you, Dr. Cleveland. After the death of George Floyd, and right here in our own state, Breonna Taylor, after those killings and countless others across the country, and the protests that sparked by all the racial inequality, what do you believe is the current status of the movement, and how do we move forward from all that has transpired?
Well, a lot has been transpired over the year, but you know, I think the movement is, you know, kind of all over the place, to be quite honest. And to some degree, our movement has been hijacked also by different groups of people. And, you know, so people are protesting. Some people are in the streets. Some people are using social media to protest. I think, and there's nothing wrong with being in the streets. You know, everybody has their role, right? You know, you can be out in the streets protesting, you can be on social media, you can do it in churches and things of that nature. But two things I find is that's limiting our protests is the lack of, we have a void in leadership in the larger community nationally, particularly in Black leadership collectively. And then we also just out there protesting without a plan. It's a futile process. You know, Paulo Freire says in his book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, research without action is just rhetoric, and action without research is just activism. So if you don't have a plan, you know, so somebody asked you right now, you know, we're out there protesting. What is the plan, though, to improve our situation with racism, institutionalized racism, police brutality, and things of that nature. Can anyone actually tell that and say that and explain that what our plan is other than protesting?
Jessica, you look like you wanted to say something.
Oh, you really do throw people under the bus, don't you? I'm not accustomed to this. You didn't do this to me last time.
I'm so sorry.
No, I agree with Dr. Cleveland. You can't talk about this without talking about the pandemic, just because it has halted some of the efforts that were being made pre-pandemic. But it is nice to see our community come together, the whole Lexington community come together and advocate for equity. The question is, what's our plan and what's our goal? What's our end goal? Making sure that we're protesting for a purpose, and not just out there protesting.
That's good. That's good.
And I'll throw this in, Melody. You don't have to throw me under the bus. I agree with both of them, because I said this recently on a podcast with Tina Bryson, just that we've got to get to the place that we're moving plans into policies. And the thing is that we're very passionate about it, as we should be. We should be passionate about the change that we desire and we know needs to take place. But in order for it to happen, we've got to then move it into policy, and we have to be there to do it. And so how that looks is getting our folks in those positions so that we can make policy actually exist. And I think that's kind of that next bridge into the steps of making sure that our voices are heard where they need to be heard.
Oh, that's good stuff right there.
And Melody, can I get back on the bus for a second?
Go ahead.
Better get on to get ran over, right? The last thing I'll say about this, and I mentioned leadership, is that, sometimes when people are out front and they want to be leaders, we forget about, we have another generation of young people that we're not listening to, that they lead in different ways, but they can lead. And I think we need to give them some voice.
I like that. I really like that. And they needed to hear that just now. So Jessica, I'm so sorry. I'm going to come right back to you. Yes, I'm right down your alley, girl. So when you talk about, the assets and, funding of knowledge and resilience that, we all notice in our community, what is it that we have noticed widespread in our Black community?
I'm going to say, I think it's just the sheer determination. I mean, our life experiences, we've had to overcome challenges and trauma, and we come out on the other side just determined to be better than we were, or determined to make this world a better place than it was for people of color. And I think, like Melissa said, we've got to figure out how to address the systemic issues that continue to hold us back. We've got to help to create the policies, change the policies that provide a better opportunity for those that come behind us. And as Dr. Cleveland said, it includes those that come behind us, because they may have new, better, and brighter ideas than those of us who have been on the front lines and advocating and pushing for change.
That's good stuff. I don't know if anybody else want to add anything. I won't throw you under there, but if you want to add anything.
All right. Thank you for that. Just that focus, and I love hearing about the voice of that generation that needs to be empowered to, and they're ready to speak. They're ready to speak. So Judge Murphy, what are some of the challenges you see facing our Black families here in our community? And speaking right now in 2021, what do you see are some of the biggest challenges that we are facing as families in the Black community?
I would say because everything is cyclical. If we get to the bottom line, everything is connected to one another. So when we're looking at some of the issues that face our families, I would start with, we've got a void in our wealth gap. And that's a financial wealth gap, because at the end of the day, there are experiences and things that our children are not able to get because there's that monetary gap, which then leads to an educational gap, which then leads to, unfortunately, because we have issues of poverty, that strike the Black community harder than any others. Our medical and environment that they're facing. I mean, the pandemic has just shown it in such a light. We all knew it. We knew it was there. But then the pandemic has said, look, we told you. and so it becomes all connected. Then, of course, our children, I think Penny Christian, who, of course, 16 District PTA, I keep saying that she's been on one on Facebook. She had posted, all of those folks that are so just tore up about our kids and being online this whole time and fighting for that voice of equity. We needed you back when we were fighting for our kids for equity. And so often, even in the criminal justice system, and this is something that we've seen and has come back around. And I know I'm probably getting long-winded, so I'll try to make it real short. But how we treated cocaine and crack cocaine crimes as it relates to how we treated heroin and all of those crimes. And so we've now moved to a treatment, and it's a substance use disorder. And I'm not negating any of that. I'm glad for it. But I heard Sadiqa Reynolds said, and I will say it every time, is just that it shouldn't have taken the pain resonating with your kid before you decided to speak up for my kid. And I think that that's the other big issue that would challenge is that it for whatever reason, we're living in this place where people won't speak up. We won't do it collectively. We've got to make sure it touches us first. And it's like, no, I need to speak for everybody's kids. And that's the unit of a family, is that we all need to be fighting for one another's child, regardless of whether, Jessica's child is facing that issue or Dr. Cleveland's kids. It's all of our children. And that has to be the collective voice of the community.
Oh, I love it. I really like that, Judge Murphy. Thank you for that. I don't know if anybody want to add to it. I'll give
Just
it
a little bit.
Go ahead.
Melissa mentioned equity and things like that. Part of I think the issue is that we have well over 35 million African Americans in this country, but there is a Black experience. We have some common experiences, but everybody don't experience the same thing. And so we try to use universal strategies for the entire African American community. And I always tell people that, as Melissa said, the pandemic has exposed that. Take the pandemic as part of that as a storm. Imagine we're out in this ocean and there's a storm, right? And the storm is made up of the pandemic, social injustices, economic strain, and trauma. But we're all out in this ocean, but we're situated differently. Melody's in an ocean liner. So she feels the storm, but she don't feel like Jessica's. Jessica's in a yacht. And David's in a rowboat. And Vita is in a life raft. And Jessica's on a life preserver. So we're all feeling the storm in different ways, but we try to use universal strategies in a situation where we're all situated differently. Just because we're all Black don't mean we're all going to do the exact same thing.
I have to admit, they don't call you doctor for no reason, right, Vita? Like, that was good. I think I'm going to use that somewhere, somehow. I'm going to use that. I'm going to need it. I like that.
Educators, we beg, borrow, and steal, so have at it.
Right. David, I can't leave you out of this conversation at all. I don't know if you have anything to add with that, but I definitely want to ask and direct this next question to you, sir. And so this show is about being solution driven, and that's our focus, talking about issues and being solution driven. And that's why you all are here. So my question to you is, David, is what are some strategies and ways that we can uplift the Black community, our Black community?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. So first of all, we identify the difference between systemic and systematic. We use those words interchangeably, but they're really not the same word, though they're both to be considered if we're go solution driven. Systemic means that it's embedded in systems, but systematically it has been embedded in systems. So we look at systematic as a chronic over time issue, and the systemic pathogens that exist are acute. And so I think to address the issue, what we have to do is acknowledge that we have the tools to address them. So I want to point us towards the commission report, things like the Mayor's Commission on Equality report. that addresses the sectors of issues, areas of issues that we need to be speaking to. Health disparities, we talked about that today. Education disparities, we talked inequities that we talked about. Economic and the equitable distribution of wealth was cited as a root issue. And then law enforcement and justice and accountability. All of those are being addressed in this commission report. It's the same issue. They're the same issues that were addressed in another report that I was part of a decade ago with the Urban League of Lexington, the state of Black Lexington, not unlike the state of Black families. Same measurement, same metrics we were looking at. So I would say to address the issues for Black families, we stop studying it and start addressing it. And we start addressing it through a set of 50 plus recommendations that were formed by people with education and lived experiences that affect Black families in Lexington. And that report should become the Bible for social justice moving ahead. And new superintendents should use it. Chamber presidents should use it. University of Kentucky presidents should have it on their desk. Business leaders should have it on their desk. Nonprofits should have it on their desk. Churches should have it on their landing page, homepage, so community can read, endorse, support, and hold accountable for that report. So I think that will enhance the life outcomes of our children and families in Lexington and get at the dismantling of systems of inequity and interrupting systems of violence in our community.
Thank you. That was good. Thank you for that.
All right, so Dr. Cleveland, back to you. Mr. Cozart kind of alluded to, us looking at things, but what do we need to be honest about when we look at the disparities facing the Black community? How do we get real with it? How are we just honest about it and have those conversations?
I'm always coming from an educational perspective, but Melissa mentioned something earlier that's important, that all these things are connected. And so we have to look at that from an educational perspective. I always tell people that a child is only educated in school is an uneducated child. And so we cannot give our babies to the schools and expect they're going to get everything they need 7 hours a day in a building. We need to be educating them also. And so the first thing is to know from which you came, know who you are and where we're from and things of that nature. And I think that understand that all of us have something to offer in the community, in the Black community, and just recognizing that. And I share this with my BMW scholars, and I like to share it to folks who listen. When you operate in your gift, you don't have to be at the head of the table. For wherever you sit or stand, the table will shift. So if you know where you are in your gifts and things of that nature, starts believing within. And so whether it's education, social issues, or whatever, you know from whence you came. And knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is more powerful. And so starting being honest with it. But one thing we do have to be honest with is this, and is we have to understand that we also suffer from trauma, and mental health is real in the Black community. And we're in denial with that sometimes. And that we know stress makes us sick. And if you want to be real about it, that some of those things we internalize, all that stress, comes out in our behavior and our health and things of that nature. So that's one thing I do want to put out there, is that, mental health is something we need to take into consideration.
Absolutely.
And I think not only do we need to take it into consideration, but we need to consider getting help for it. There's nothing wrong with seeking help when you have challenges. And I want to echo what Dr. Cleveland said and talk about, we have a responsibility. We can't just rise up when tragedy happens. We need to rise up each and every day, specifically for our babies that are coming along and their education. I've always been an advocate of parent engagement, and it is not a right, it is our responsibility to advocate for our children and to demand an equitable, quality education. They deserve it just as much as anyone else. And then I'm going to go back to the last question a little bit about the challenges of the Black families and tie it back to the first one, because one of the things we said in the first one was we rely on families in a different word. We have changed that and we need to go back. I hear all the time, we used to see our teachers in our neighborhoods. We used to see teachers who looked like us when we were in the school system. We cared about people. My mother would know what happened to me before I got home because my teacher, Miss Jones, was sitting up on the corner and didn't hesitate to make a phone call. As a family unit, as a community, we have got to go back to, it takes a village. It takes each and every one of us. You know, I grew up in a 2-parent home. My daughter grew up in a single parent home, but she had her grandparents, her cousins, her aunts, her uncles to rely on, because let me tell you, she would call them snitches all the time. My aunt called you already and told you what I did? Yes, ma'am. So I didn't have to worry about whether or not I had eyes on her, because I had eyes on her. We have to create that family, that community again, and do some wraparound services. If somebody is struggling with mental health, let's lift them up. Let's not tell them it's something that they need to hide. Let's lift them up. Let's help them get the support they need, because otherwise it becomes generational again. When I'm not feeling well or having struggles, I'm gonna hide mine too, because that's what my mama or my daddy did. We have got to rise up in tragedy and not in tragedy, because inequities is a tragedy.
And I will echo on that. And I know we've got to move on because I'm looking at the time on it. But there is, even when Jessica was saying just her community that she had, and if I'm not mistaken, Jessica, you grew up in Oakwood, right? And so, you know, she had that community. And so I am a transplant to Lexington. I grew up in Baltimore. And so coming here, what I have tried to do, and so bridging from that is that we also start building connection with our kids' friends. So every young man that ever walked through my door, I know exactly who their teachers were. And so when I showed up at Bryan Station, when I showed up at LTMS, I wasn't just going to go check on Terrence. I was going to go check on them too. And I think that just as Jessica said, so it does have to be more than just your cousins and blood relatives. It's everybody. And because there's not one parent, I say this all the time, even in my courts, I've never met a parent that wakes up in the morning and says, yeah, I want my kid to fail. I don't want my kid to succeed. Some parents don't have everything at their disposal to be able to be there in every moment. But if I can just walk down the street from the courthouse and show up, hey, how you doing, Miss Such and Such? Yeah, I'm here for all of them. And I think that we have to get back to that. We have to.
Yeah. Yeah, they brought me back to a moment. Like I said, that I grew up in a small town. Eyes was everywhere. I mean, you couldn't do anything. The eyes were on you. They were planted on you, and it wasn't eyes that were. It was eyes of love, eyes of concern, eyes of wanting you to do better and knowing who you were. So I appreciate that. That took me back.
That's good. So listen, I gotta get this last question now because we can spend some time here. And I've gotten excited. So David, are you still with me? This question is for you, sir. And so especially in the Lexington, for this, the Lexington community, how can we help heal the injustice, or how can it be healed, the injustices that African Americans have faced, right? And then the second part of that question is, what have we done well, and what do we need to work on and promote those practices in our Black families?
Yeah, thank you. I actually I was leaning into this question when I answered earlier, and I would point to the work that is being done and the movement that is afoot now, to include but not be limited to the Mayor's Commission on Equality and those recommendations. It's good work. There's something in there for everyone, and I would want us to consider, as we move that ahead, that we work together as a family and work together as a village and as a community to endorse that and put the public pressure on those we need to put it on to make sure those recommendations come to bear. I just want to endorse what has been said in reference to the family. Though we know there's been an evolution of family based on sort of the environment we're in, we don't need to supplant or forget what family is and has been. We cannot let the severance of family affect our reverence of family and relevance of family. And so I think if we address these issues through some of the bodies of work that have been done, such as the commission report, and work within our communities to continue to revitalize family as we know it in our culture, we can make changes, sustain changes.
Absolutely. Looking like a true community leader, right? And so some of the things that I heard was there's nothing wrong with, addressing and focusing on mental health and making sure that we address those things. And it takes a village, right? And then one of the things that I kind of heard is that, as we're collecting all of this information, that stuff doesn't belong to us. Our gifts, they don't belong to us personally. They're meant for us to give back. Am I right? Am I wrong, Vita?
Yeah. And everybody keeps saying it takes a village. It takes a healthy village.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And oftentimes I have said that as Black families, many times, and that's what really excites me about Be Full. I've said it time and time again. Many Black families have asked, where is my village? Mm-hmm. And we have to be willing to step up and say, I will become your village.
Man, this is good. This is a good show. This is a great show, right? Befitting for some leaders of the community, right? And so I'm going to end with this. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you all who are watching out there. Thank you for watching us on the show tonight. The Faces show was live tonight, so we hope you got a lot of information out of it. We would like to stay connected with you all by continuing to build a stronger community of support for our families. Vita is going to tell us how we can do that.
Yes, I am so grateful to this illustrious panel tonight, and you have given us food for thought, food for movement. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. But please, families, everybody watching, send us your pictures, your videos, your words of encouragement so that we can share with each other about what we're facing together. We want to highlight your messages, and we want to offer encouragement and support to each other. It's a network of families that help families. So if you have any topics that you would like to see or hear from us or chat about, email us at faceit@fayette.kyschools.us or text us at 859-903-5531. Thank you for addressing the state of the Black families tonight. I have enjoyed this conversation, and I know it could have lasted a couple of hours. So thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Viewers out there, please stay tuned. And Infrentalo is going to follow us while they are facing the state of the Afro-Latina colorism, Latina in America, right? And so you all stay tuned for that show that comes on right now. Our show will be live again February 25th at 6:30 as we are focusing on facing our health and wellness together. We're going to do some physical fitness. We're going to do some Zumba, some jazzercise, some line dancing. We're going to exercise on our next show. So again, and as always, we love staying connected with you all, and we will continue to face it together. We will see you soon.